It's recording now on that side. Ready when you are. Welcome to the Grief Bully Podcast. I am your host, J.Nicole. Thank you for joining our weekly discussion around grief, mental health, and overall personal wellness. The Grief Bully Podcast will serve as a vehicle to help you navigate life's journey. Be sure to subscribe, review, and share the podcast with anyone in your life that you think it will help. Let's bully grief together. What's up, beautiful people? Welcome back to another episode of the Grief Bully Podcast. I am your host, J.Nicole. Today is Monday, April the 13th. We are back in the studio. We have another great episode lined up for you today. If you haven't had a chance, please go back, check out last week's episode. I wrote you guys a letter and I want you to hear it. So definitely go back, check that out, all that good stuff, and please share it with someone else in your life. So last week I was by myself. This week I am in the studio solo, but we have a remote guest and I'm sure it's going to be an awesome episode. Guys, listen, I have been waiting since the launch of this podcast to have this interview. This person, I have to just take the time to just say that God absolutely knew what he was doing when he had our paths cross. You have been such a, oh my goodness, I can't even put the word on it, but definitely a lifesaver and someone who's definitely helped change my life, especially when it comes to grief. We have in here today with us Pat Obst, but she's my grief therapist, guys. We finally have my grief therapist on the show. I'm so excited. Pat, thank you for setting the time aside to come on here and chat with us. How are you feeling?
I'm doing okay. I'm sorry it took so long, but we finally made it happen.
Finally made it happen. Listen, listen, I told you I am going to be here. This show is going to be here. When time makes itself the right time, it's going to happen. So I feel like a lot of times when I'm on the show and I'm talking, I feel like I'm echoing things that you said to me, and I always attribute that to you. I'm always like, listen, I can't take credit. I owe this to my therapist. And now to finally have you on the show is definitely awesome. When I was looking for a therapist, I was looking for someone who did specialize in grief and had a lot of experience with that. And that's why you stood out to me. Had no idea how great it would actually work out, but I'm excited for you to share your light with our audience today. So do you want to tell a little bit about your background and just your experience?
Yeah, sure. But before that, I just want to say that Nicole, for to see the growth and the healing in you, and for you to be doing this podcast, it's just awesome. And it's part of the reason why I do what I do. A lot of times people say to me, how can you talk with people about death all the time? But that's not really what we're doing. We're talking about life, and healing, and recreating your life. And there's so much that you've been doing, and I feel like it's an honor to be on your podcast. So
wow, thank you. Well, we just love each other now. We just have a lot of equal mutual love and respect here for one another. But your background definitely.
Yeah. Well, I went to Rutgers. I'm an LCSW, and have been a therapist for over 20 years. I had some time when I was working part-time as a therapist, and also worked full-time in working with the chronically mentally ill, also inpatient, and also worked with the elderly through a program through Cadbury that's in Cherry Hill, and then worked with hospice. So I got a lot of background there, and of course, the schooling, and then my own personal losses that I bring to bear on what I do as well. I was kind of a generalist at first, the first couple of years, and then after the loss of my son, my infant son, I knew then that I had to be a grief counselor, and I work with all different types of loss, but I specialize in working with parents who've lost children, and that's what I do.
Well, we are definitely sorry about your loss, and I know I've extended my condolences in the past, and we both believe that we have purpose that comes through pain and experiences. And although I would have never wanted that to happen to you, I'm thankful that you chose to give your gift to the world, because you've helped myself, and I'm sure I can't even probably count the number of people whose lives you've been able to help. So Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for your experience. We were talking, and there's so much going on in the world right now. And that's why when you were available, I had to jump on it. And you probably didn't think it would be within a few hours.
No,
But
I said, if I remember right, I said this coming week because my son has spring break, and you said, "What about today?" All
yeah,
right.
but you're the one that said to me, I don't let the grass grow underneath of me. I remember you said that, and that's
Yeah.
definitely true. So much going on in the world right now, Pat. I mean, it's just almost unreal and the unthinkable that's going on right now. And so you and I talked about some things we can discuss here today. And, you had a great point in perspective on how people are dealing with loss on top of global loss. And we wanted to get into that and just offer some light and insight to those people. So this is your thing. This is what you do. So I'm used to not talking this much or being as smiley when I'm in there if I am talking.
That's all right. So yeah, we had talked a little bit about the loss within the loss. Um, so one of the things that really kind of the first week that I was doing things remotely with clients, a lot of what we were talking about was that this is really a sudden death for everyone in the world. It's the loss of life as we know it. And because a lot of people were feeling some really strange sensations and whatnot, which were very conducive to having had a sudden death. Sleep disturbances and agitation and sadness and all these things. So I think I think we can probably all agree that we've all experienced this shared global grief and loss. But within that, I know for myself, and I'll share that in a little bit, and for other people, there's losses within that loss. And so I wanted to share a couple of those. I know of someone whose aunt just went on hospice, and she can't be there with her. Um, uh, uh, Also, another person who was working through the fairly recent loss of her adult child and was keeping busy with taking care of the grandchildren. And now in lockdown, she can't do that. And so now she's in her head, in her house. And so, the loss of the grandchildren because of the lockdown has now caused her to have to, really sit with her grief more than she was. There's also some positive things that have gone on. I know two people who've had babies,
Wow.
but
Yeah.
the grandparents can't hold the babies, right? So some of that joyful stuff, people can't celebrate together. Um, One other thing, a client of mine who lost a teenage son not too long ago, she was just coming, it was a couple years ago, but coming to that place of feeling like the cloud was sort of starting to lift. And now that she's on lockdown, it's like, wait a minute, I thought I was that my healing had taken me beyond that. Not that you don't have your bad days, and now she feels like that cloud is back. And so there's all these losses within this loss and because of the pandemic. For myself, my father went on hospice right before the lockdown. Fortunately, I got to spend a little bit of time with him, but then I couldn't be there because I didn't want to get my stepmother sick because I had what I think was bronchitis, not sure what it was, but so I couldn't be there with him. And I'll talk a little bit later maybe about what I did in order to work with that as we talk more about what we have to do when we have these situations. So yeah, there's a good and bad that things that are going on, and they're all being affected by this pandemic. So we've lost within the loss, people unemployed, losing financial security, all those kinds of things within also having to be locked down and afraid of this virus.
Yes, I mean, I think that's all of those things you said that we can definitely all empathize with, I'm sure. But hearing you say that we all experience a sudden death to an extent, I never thought of it that way. And everything that I've said in regards to what's been going on, I've never thought of it as that we all are experiencing a death to an extent and it was sudden and just a shock and out of nowhere. And so, because I've had a lot of people say that they've never experienced complicated grief, or they've never even experienced a loss of a loved one before. So when we're talking about these things, they actually have no idea what it feels like. So do you think that it's can be comparable, or is it just it's too hard to pretty much gauge that because everyone's grief is different?
Well, everyone's grief is different, but again, I think those common feelings, like people who haven't experienced the loss of a loved one, let's say, they're probably experiencing things that they're like, this is so weird. Why am I agitated? Why is my sleep? Why do I sometimes feel like crying at the drop of a hat? Why do I feel this sort of this emptiness? I mean, obviously there's somewhat of an emptiness because we can't be close to each other. But those are all, and confused and kind of forgetful, and everything's out of sorts. All those kinds of things are common grief reactions to our bodies as well as our psyche.
No, that's very true. And so if you guys are listening out there, if you're experiencing these different emotions and you're like, what the heck is going on with me? We definitely would definitely attribute that to grief and experiencing that. And also with it being such a shock. I'm not sure if there was another point that you wanted to make with that, but what I would ask is, what does a person do? You know, you said you would mention about what you did or how to help yourself cope and deal with not being able to be there with your father and go through that experience, or also his last days and the burial and all those things, be able to have that how you normally would have. What are we supposed to do in this time?
Well, and if you see me looking off to the side, I'm just looking at my notes. I'm
I
not
know
myself.
I know you're a no person, notepad person.
He wanted to order from pizza delivery, and I said, okay, but don't bother me, and I don't want to hear the doorbell ring. um, the first thing I think that's really important that we do is that we kind of allow that the inner brat to come out. It's okay for us to kind of uh, 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 metaphorically, lay on the ground and kick and scream and say, this isn't fair, or why me? Why does this have to happen? And maybe even point fingers, this shouldn't be happening. They should have known that, all that kind of stuff. Definitely we need to go in there and be with it. Sometimes you hear the word surrender, kind of surrender to our grief, whether it's the pandemic or, another loss that we've had, which is okay. But I go beyond that even to the word embrace, because when we embrace our loss, it's like, if I have my cup of coffee here, until I embrace it, I can't do anything with it. It's just sitting there. Okay. I can surrender to it and say, oh, I'm so ready for that cup of coffee.
Yeah.
The whole bit. But until I embrace it, hold it in my hand, I can't do anything with it. And it's not really real until that time. It's in my hand, and then I take that sip. So when we embrace our grief, we're with it. And it helps us to accept it. Because acceptance is, and you're going to recognize this phrase, Nicole, giving up the hope that the past could be different. So yes, there's a time for that inner brat, but then we have to say, okay, but you know what? It is what it is. And people hate that phrase.
Yeah. That's a tough one for me to have.
But that is giving up the hope that the past could be different. Because think about it. If we keep saying, oh, this politician should have been doing this, and why don't they have enough tests, and, all that kind of stuff, as well as why can't he be with my dad if they didn't have this lockdown? If I stay in that, I'm not going to be able to move beyond that. And all that chatter is going to keep me stuck. So if I embrace it and finally say, okay, you know what, regardless of whose fault it is, regardless of whether it's unfair, this is what it is. Now, what do I do about it? Now, for my dad, he and I used to sing together a lot. At home, he had a karaoke thing in his basement, and we'd sing all the time. He sung in the church choir. We sang together at different events and whatnot. I think we even sung weddings together and that sort of thing. But one time, years and years ago, we sang "Unforgettable," the Nat King Cole song, and how he and Natalie Cole, they did that sort of virtual duet.
I don't know, but I will look it up after this.
That's right, because I'm so much older than you. Um, look it up. Nat King Cole and Natalie Cole, they sing a duet of the song Unforgettable. If you have a lot of younger people, they might not know, but they'll recognize it. I guarantee once they hear it, they'll recognize it. So anyway, we sang that together at a talent show. Well, so it was actually, it was a couple weeks ago, and I was so irritable about my, that I couldn't be there. So irritable. And I was ready to jump in the car. So my inner brat was coming out, right? And then I was like, "Ah, but I can't do that." So I put that song on because that's what I was thinking about. I put the song on while I was doing the dishes. And then I listened to what my grief was telling me. And you've heard me say that before. Listen
I
to what
love that one. And I say that to people too.
I said, you know what I need to do? I know exactly what I need to do. I need to sing to my father one last time. Sing with him. So I texted my stepmom. It was around 7 o'clock. I said, I need you to hold the phone to his ear and I'll sing to him. She said, I can do that around 7:30. She calls me. She puts the phone to his ear. Now at this point, I mean, he had enough. Oh gosh, I can't think of the name of the
Morphine.
enough morphine in him at that point that he was kind of out of it. So I hear him snoring, and as I start to sing, the snoring got lower and lower, and then it stopped. And then when I finished singing, of course, the snoring started again. Now my stepmother said, "Oh my God," when he stopped breathing. I said, "No, he was just listening because he knew it was my voice and he knew that song." Then I was completely at peace. That was 7:30. At 11:50, I got the call he had passed that night. If I had been stuck in this is so unfair, I hate this, I wouldn't have heard, first of all, I probably wouldn't have listened to that song while I was doing the dishes. I wouldn't have heard what I needed to do. I wouldn't have been at the kind of peace that I was. After I heard that he passed, I would have been like, oh, I should have been there. You know what I mean? And I
No,
wasn't.
definitely. That's first of all, that's beautiful. And I'm glad you were able to share that moment with him. And that actually was like the best example for listening to your grief and having that opportunity to not miss that moment. Because I do think in our frustration and our anger, and just especially like with so much going on, like I thought about with everything that happened with my father, if this was this time last year, I don't I don't even know what would have
That was
happened.
just Nicole.
Yeah, would have been pretty insane. So thank you for sharing that. And I think that will help a lot of us to realize that we do have to, it is what it is. And what are we going to be able to do and to control what we absolutely can control in that situation? Something that I think would be remiss if I didn't talk about this is the whole idea of grieving well.
Yeah.
Do you think it's maybe too soon in terms of the pandemic and everything that's going on to start to learn to integrate the loss, or do we have to kind of almost do that immediately to move through this a little bit more smooth or something like
Well, I think doing grief well starts from the very beginning.
that?
I don't think we have to wait for it because I think there are things to learn and to hear all along the way. But again, if we're there's a you've seen me use the loop, right? That loop we have to go through. It's okay for us to go in it. In fact, it's important for us to go in it because we need to feel what we're feeling. But then we have to just quiet and listen. What is it telling me? What are the words? I use the example a lot of times of my mother. I lost my mother when I was 24, and I learned to live without my mother. When I turned 49, for a week, I was messed up.
Mm.
I couldn't think straight. I was upset. I was irritable. I was tearful. And I realized, when I stopped and realized what it was, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be without my mother longer than I was with her.
Yeah.
And then I listened. I said, wait a minute, what are those words? I'm going to be without her longer than I was with her. So what's that telling me? That I miss being with her. So what do I need to do to feel like I'm with her? So then what I did was I changed some of the, instead of having pictures, in a folder on my computer, I made it my desktop. I kind of talked to her more. I brought some uh, photos out that had been more obscure. I put them right in my room and that sort of thing. So then I felt closer to her. I sat in the rocking chair that is hers, that she rocked her first grandchild in, that I rocked my first child in. And so what it was telling me was, you need to be with her. See, now I could problem solve. Now I could ask the questions: how and what? Okay, what do I need to do? How do I feel with her? And then I figured that out, and then I was fine.
Gotcha. But you can't ask those questions, the how and the why, if you don't go in to feel,
Yeah.
like try to feel, right? Like you're just, so that's just adding to the frustration because you're not being curious. But I mean, I feel like that's a scary thing to like go in, especially for someone like myself. I'm an extreme extrovert. I'm very, based on a lot of my childhood experiences, I'm very like, I'm just going to get through this. Like, this is what I do. Like, I think my resiliency has become at some point a weakness for me because I'm so used to just getting through. So although that definition is the ability to cope, I don't know that I've coped well and healthy.
You're starting to use it to work for you instead of against you. So it's all right. You're on the right track.
Yeah, thank goodness. Thanks to you and helping me out with that. But I feel like a lot of people don't really know how to like go in before they can even do the loop. Like, how do they even begin to do that?
Right. Sure. I mean, certainly, um, if somebody has a lot of really deep and scary stuff, I would certainly say, therapists, support groups, something like that. Just, you've got to have people that you can go um, to be able to make sure you feel that comfort and that safety. But also, it's not going to kill us. It's really not.
That's good.
And we will stop crying. You might have an hour's worth of that, what I call the snotty cry, it's
Yeah,
just all over the place. But you'll stop.
true.
And that's when a lot of times the journaling can be helpful, because you can write it out. And sometimes if you can't hear what it's telling you, when you've written it out, then you can read what it's telling you. So, that's another thing that can be helpful. It's okay for us to also get angry. That's what pillows are for.
Yeah.
Punching them, throwing them. I once read that you should, if you've had a recent loss, to have an empty milk carton. Have they not a laundry carton? They're too heavy. But an empty milk carton, because you can throw that thing in the house and it won't break anything, and you can really wing it. So it is okay to let the anger come out too, in a way that's safe for you and the objects that you're throwing or hitting. Um, but the holding it in, the or blaming other people or whatever it is, that's going to do us much more harm
Mhm.
than us being with it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's most people's initial reaction is the anger and the blaming and the finding problems in so much. I think for me, when you talk about a loss within a loss, I feel like there's been so many losses that is I when right now where it comes to every day, I'm like, well, what do I pick? What is stressing me out the most or what is concerning me the most? I mean, even just to the fact of coming to record my podcast and being able to do that and do what I feel will be comfortable and safe, and just knowing that, okay, I have to take these steps. Okay. But then I'm thinking about, bills, and I'm thinking about this. And so there's a lot of things there. I guess if you could offer something that would be an anchor, I mean, you've already offered so many things that can help people, but just if they can't necessarily maybe access a therapist right away, or have that support, if there's just something that can, I mean, you said journaling and those things, I think they're all great things. I don't know if there's anything that I'm missing that might be able to like help settle that person, or just so that they can just make a plan.
Well, again, part of the settling is to stop screaming.
Mhm.
There's a time for that. But then we have to say that, we cannot, we have to give up the hope that the past could be different. It is what it is, no matter how much we hate that. We need, because once we say that, once you say, but I'm laid off, I am laid off, as opposed to, this sucks, I can't believe I'm laid off, what am I going to do? Okay. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. You have to do that. But then you have to be quiet and accept it. Stop, put your dukes down. Because then you can ask, okay, are there other jobs that I can get where, uh, uh, um, companies that are hiring because they're essential? Are there other people in my life who the job that they have, they're still working and they would be willing to help me out financially for a little bit? Let me look at the things that the government is offering. What do I fit that can come, to me from that, as well as other, yeah, even something like, oh, I right now, counseling, you can't do counseling because counselors aren't working. Yes, they are. They're working remotely, and you can call a place like Starting Point, and you can still contact a therapist there. I mean, I've had people contact me, new clients, and start therapy remotely. We're all
I
getting
was just I was just starting to laugh because I feel like I try to send everyone to you, and it's like you can only take but so many people.
it can only take but so many.
Yeah.
And here's the thing too, is it's important for us to be open to the possibility that these losses, hard as they may be, if we start moving in that direction, um, that they can begin. Well, let me give you a couple examples
Sure.
that down the road it can work for us. Okay. Years ago, 7 years, I think it is, I had breast cancer, double mastectomies. So that's a major loss. It's catastrophic health loss. My wife also got laid off. So I was out of work. She was out of work. Now, what came from that was, after all that, she actually went back to school. She's now a professor. And I was just starting to launch a program called Afterwards, which was with a colleague of mine. We ran it for a few years. It was for people who were several years out from their loss, how to recreate their lives. So this came out of this. Okay, after Ricky, I worked with the March of Dimes for a while, and a lot came through. For me, for that, I was able to kind of heal and kind of be his mom through helping them with their prematurity campaign, because that's the way he died, from preterm birth. But what came out of that was that now I'm a grief counselor, and this little baby who lived 32 and a half hours died in my arms, would be 18 years old now, has touched thousands and thousands of people. He's my sidekick. I take him to work every day. And so if we're willing to stay open, beauty can come out of the worst pain in the world. So we've got to kind of trust in that. But if we are mired in the unfairness and the woulda, coulda, shouldas and all that, it's hard to see that. And that's a big part of what I do. And that's how you help people do grief well.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Thank you. I'm looking like I've never heard you talk before. It's that was a beautiful way to put that for sure, because I think a lot of people have doubt in therapy and just in like, can I really heal? What does healing even look like if these voids and this pain will always be here? But you just gave great examples to what healing could look like and how it can develop itself into different things that you are affiliated with and that you're doing, and you're bringing your son with you to work every day and having a bigger purpose. So I thank you for sharing that. I do want to ask you this. I do want to get into first our inspirational boost, which is a part of our show that is important for us to just have a quote or something along those lines that is brought to us by our sponsors, Adina J Designs. They make, create, and inspire us through decorated apparel, wood signs. They've got these fire tumblers going on right now. Please go follow them on Adina J Designs at ADENAJAYDESIGNS on both Instagram and Facebook. And our quote this week is, "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop." So that is our quote for this week, our inspirational boost. It's always in our show notes, so you can definitely go back and check that out. And I also want to go into our In Love and Memory segment. It is a part of our show that's very, very important to me, to humanize someone that has lived a life and lived a life well, to make sure that those people don't go in vain, and that we continue to show love and extend our condolences to family and friends that are still here, because that matters and they matter. And so this week, our In Love and Memory segment, unfortunately, is going to go out to your father. And if you want to send some love out to him, we'll definitely give you the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. His name is Pete Obst, and he passed on the 23rd, which was the day after my birthday, because my father is a great protector, and he held on for a day after so that it wouldn't be on my birthday, and that's just how he works. And just if I could share, my son, who is out in LA, has been out there a few years trying to break into the script writing, movie writing business. My dad loved him. In fact, my dad's in one of his little YouTube things. Found out today, and dad is doing some work. Found out today that my son just got signed on for a second season of writing for a Snapchat series.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
So we're pretty excited about that. And so, as I say, our loved ones are dead. They're not gone. And so dad's still working, which is pretty cool. So shout out to him and a thanks to him today.
Sure. No, that's awesome. That is beautiful. I think that is so funny, because right when you said that he passed the day after your birthday, my natural reaction was, oh, and then you had a great insight, a positive spin on that. And I think that that's the part of it and why you're a grief therapist. And
Oh,
people like myself would be like, oh, damn, like that's messed up. And you're having that part. So before you get out of here, I mean, I'll give you an opportunity to end your way, but I do have a question for you. And I asked all my guests this, and I didn't tell you ahead of time. So if you had to choose a color for your grief, what would it be and why?
green. It's life. There is life in grief. It's not about death. It's about a seed that gets planted. And whether we water that seed or not makes the difference. And whether and when it starts to come up, we can, and I'll steal this from Emily Fletcher, who is so I'm just going to shout out to her, Ziva Meditation. And I got to tell you, I've been meditating since probably December with her program, and it's part of the reason why I was able to get through what I did with my dad in this pandemic, for sure. ZivaMeditation.com, just going to throw that out there. But she says you got to water the flowers, not the weeds. And so when we do that, it's living. It comes back to life in some. Ricky has come back to life in some form. My father is, living through what's happening with my son's life right now. I mean, it's just amazing, absolutely amazing.
Beautiful answer. Mic drop. I thought I was going to catch you off guard, but you had an answer. And I actually need to start doing my therapy homework, because I have been supposed to, for so many weeks now, look up the meditation. And I just keep telling you, like, oh yeah, I forgot. Guys, listen, I am not a great grief therapist patient. I just go on my terms and just I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do all these homework. And then I'm like, oh crap, I have PAT today. I didn't do it. So
Crammer. She's a crammer.
Yes, I am definitely a crammer. It's in my phone somewhere. I don't know where it is. Like, I'm just, doing these things. It has definitely been a wonderful conversation, and I'm very, very thankful to have had you on the show. I think that our audience will definitely benefit from it. And what I really mean, and I say this to them all the time, is that I don't think that you're God, right? And I think that we all have that, but I will always say you play such a crucial role in my healing and the help of other people that I know as well, and just being able to help us on this journey. And I think that in order for you to get where I would love to see everyone go, you do have to incorporate, professional help in that way. So I thank you. I thank you for the space that you hold in the world. And if you want to add any last words or remarks before we head out of here, definitely have the opportunity to do so.
You have to tell me how much time I have first.
Let's say about 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. So what I want to finish with is, again, you asked, what my color was, and it's green for life. Because again, I get more inspired by my clients than I think I inspire anyone. The fact that half my clients are still, well, all of them really, still standing is amazing to me after some of the things they've been through. So there's one story in particular, and she doesn't mind if I use her name. One of my first grief clients when I became a grief counselor. Mm-hmm. Her name is Janice, and she lost her only child, her daughter Erica, had turned 18. She was going to be graduating that year. She went missing for a month. She was found stabbed to death in the woods. Now, Janice came to me, obviously as distraught as you possibly could be. So the first couple of years was to keep her alive, because certainly she didn't feel she had much to live for. One of the things that we did as we went along was to talk about what her daughter wanted for her, to help her to listen to that. And two of the things that she listened to was, one, her daughter wanted her to be happy because Janice had struggled with depression, and she wanted her to be healthy because she had struggled with her weight. She went on to, what we decided was, she wanted to wear her daughter's clothing. So I told her, put it in the front of your closet and touch it every day. And so she did that, and she went through this weight loss program. We were continuing to work on her depression and her sense of self-worth. The day she came into my office with her daughter's clothing on, we just embraced each other and cried. Now, this is over 10 years ago. We continued to meet. We continued to, it's spread out. She recreated her life. She now has a wonderful life with a wonderful partner, lives on a lake. When I tell you the beautiful transformation this woman made, and here's the kicker, she still doesn't know who murdered her daughter, but she was able to move on. That's one other piece. We can't always get all the answers or all the justice in order to move on. And she was able to move on regardless of that, and honor her daughter in a beautiful, beautiful way. In fact, now when I go to work, I take Ricky and Erica with me, and they're both continuing to do work. And the last time Janice was in my office, we laughed more than I've ever laughed with a client the whole hour, because she's so full of joy now. She still has her pain, but she's also so full of joy, and the pain and the joy can coexist. And that's how you do grief well, by letting the joy really be the prominent thing.
That is a beautiful way to end the show, that the joy and the pain can go together. They can coexist in that space. And I think that's something we definitely all lose sight of, for sure. But I am so thankful for you being on the show. Guys, today has been another great episode. We are wrapping up episode 35 here. Listen, we are on YouTube. Go check us out, J.Nicole the Grief Bully, and on YouTube. You can go to jnicolejones.com if you want to get a copy of the Grief Bully Journal, or just follow us there. You already know I love hanging out on Instagram. That is my space. Please follow me there. You know that already at I_AM_J.Nicole. Guys, till next time, you already know. Love and light. Peace.
All right, Nicole. Peace out, as you always tell me in my office.
Peace out, Pat. Till next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.